Good morning, everybody, on this amazing Wednesday morning. I skipped a reading yesterday because we had our Zoom meeting and many things to do. I'm looking at myself. Look at my hair. It's grown so long. Oh, my God. And I've been practicing so much clarinet, my lip is sore. Good time to practice your musical instrument with patience and consistency. You'll make such great progress. All right. I'm going to jump right into Chapter 2 of Bud Not Buddy because it's a little bit longer. Today, on my schedule that I assigned you, is social studies reading and Bill Nye video. So go to my blog and you'll see a section that says social studies and Bill Nye video. And I linked a really short reading on the Great Depression and I color coded it. I'm not going to ask you to write about it or do questions right now. I'd like you to just read it and see what you can understand about it. It helps you understand Bud Not Buddy an awful lot, okay? And again, it's short, and I color-coded it. I underlined, like, the main idea of the paragraph, and then lighter underlined in the same color, like some of the supporting details, you know? Okay. Funny thing about photo booth is when you look at your face, you're not looking at the camera. Oh, there we go. Okay, Chapter 2. There comes a time when you're losing a fight that doesn't make sense to keep on fighting. It's not that you're being a quitter, it's just that you've got sense to know when enough is enough. That's what I love about Bud. He's got this wisdom about life going on, right? And he's always talking about it. But he's also a kid. You can always tell. It's like wisdom from a kid point of view. I love that. I was having this thought because Todd Amos was hitting me so hard and fast that I knew that blood squirting out my nose was only the beginning of a whole long list of bad things that were about to happen to me. Todd's next punch crashed into the side of my ear, and I fell on the floor and pulled my knees up to my chest and crossed my arms in front of my head like a turtle in a shell. I started scooching towards the bed, hoping I could get under it. Todd started kicking me, but his slippers couldn't hurt me near as much as his fists had. The bedroom door opened, and his mother, Mrs. Amos, came in. It seemed like she was having a hard time figuring out what was going on because Todd's right leg got tired from kicking me, and he switched over to his left one while she watched. Finally, Mrs. Amos kind of said, Toddy. Todd looked up, fell on his knees, and put his hands on his throat. He started huffing and puffing with his eyes bucking out of his head and his chest going up and down. This was my chance to get under the bed and pull the covers down so they couldn't see me. Mrs. Amos ran over to her son and fell on her knees. She put her arms around his shoulders. Toddy boy, are you all right? She looked over to where I was peeking under the bed. You little cur, what have you done to my Toddy? So I don't know if you caught a clue. Todd Amos and Mrs. Amos are his new foster family that he just moved into. When we left the end of Chapter 1, he was putting his arm around his other orphan buddy and he was about to be taken to the Amos house, and they just cut all that stuff out right to Todd Amos punching Bud. Finding my place. Todd coughed. Mother, I was only trying to help. He was sounding like a horse that had been run too hard in the winter. And look what it got me. Todd pointed at his jaw, and Mrs. Amos could see a perfect print in the shape of my hand wetted on his cheek. With one quick snatch, she had me from under the bed and out on the floor, laying down next to Todd. How dare you? This is how you choose to repay me? Not only have you struck him, you've provoked his asthma. Todd said, I was just trying to waken him to make sure he'd gone to the bathroom, Mother. I was trying to help. And look at him, Mother. This one's a bedwetter. It's written all over him. I'm not bragging when I say that I'm one of the best liars in the world, but I got to tell you, Todd was pretty doggone good at lying. It seemed like he knew some of the same things I know, the things that make I think of all the time and try to remember so I don't make the same mistakes more than 7 or 8 times. Shucks, I've got so many of them, I've rememorized them, I've had to give them numbers. And it seemed like Todd knew number 3 of Bud Caldwell's rules for having a funner life and making a better liar out of yourself. Here we go. See, rules and things number 3. Rules and things number 3. If you have to tell a lie, make sure it's simple and easy to remember. Todd did that, and this was a really good test because Mrs. Amos had no ears set to believe anything Todd said. In her eyes, Todd's mouth was just a prayer book of truth. But I can't blame Todd for lying like that. Having someone who likes you so much that you think everything you say is the truth is a liar's paradise. And that might feel so good, so it make you want to quit lying. But maybe not, because Todd hadn't quit lying since the second I came in this house. What really happened was that I woke up from a good sleep because it felt like a steam locomotive had jumped the tracks and chugged straight into my nose. When I jerked up in bed and opened my eyes, Todd was standing next to me with a yellow pencil in his hand. He was looking at it like it was a thermometer. He said, "Wow, you got all the way up to the R." He turned the pencil toward me, crunched it against the headboard. I saw Ticonderoga printed on the yellow wood. The whole room smelled like rubber from the eraser, and I was winking and blinking my left eye because it felt something had poked the back of my eyeball. I'd never gotten a pencil in as deep as anybody's nose as the N or any of the other little street urchins. I might enjoy your stay here. Who knows other things you could be number one in. I already told him that my name is Bud, not Buddy, but he still calls me Buddy. I didn't care that Todd Amos was 12 years old, and I didn't care that he was twice as big as me, and I didn't care that his mother was being paid to take care of me. I wasn't about to let anybody call me Buddy. And I wasn't about to let anybody stick a pencil up my nose all the way to the R. I swung as hard as I could at Todd's balloon head. Somewhere between the time I threw my punch and the time it landed, my fist came open and my hand landed like a pop of a rifle going off. Todd fell on the floor like he had been hit hard. He sputtered and muttered and felt the spot where I'd slapped him. Then a big smile came on his face, and he stood up and he started walking real slow towards where I was on the bed. He untied his robe and dropped it on the floor like he was getting ready to do hard work. I jumped to the floor and got my fists up. Todd might have been a lot bigger than me and ready, but this wasn't going to be a bird's nest sitting on the ground for him. He could kiss my wrist if he thought I was going to let him whip me without a good fight. But being this brave was kind of stupid. Even though Todd was a puffy, rich old mama's boy who wore a robe and slippers, he could hit like a mule, and it wasn't too long before I decided enough was enough. But the story that Mrs. Amos was hearing from her lying son was only that Todd tried to wake me up so I could go to the bathroom. Mrs. Amos hated bedwetters more than anything in the world, and my bed had a sticky, hot, smelly rubber baby sheet on it. She said it wasn't anything personal, after I had proved myself for 2 or 3 months that I could get a proper cloth sheet, but until then she had to protect her mattress. She pulled Todd to his feet and led him to the door. She looked over at me. "You're a beastly little brute, and I will not tolerate even one night with you under my roof. Who knows what you will be capable of while we sleep?" The door shut behind me, and I heard a key jiggle in the lock. I plugged the right side of my nose and tried real hard to blow the smell of rubber out the left side. The key jiggled in the lock again. This time, when the door opened, Mr. Amos was standing with Mrs. Amos. He was carrying my suitcase. Uh-oh. They had looked inside. I could tell because the twine was tied in a kind of knot I didn't know. This was wrong. They promised they'd keep it safe and not look in it. They'd laughed at me when I made them promise, but they did promise. "Boy," Mrs. Amos said, "I am not the least bit surprised of your show of ingratitude. Lord knows I've been stung by my own people before. But take a good look at me because I'm one of the only person who's totally fed up with you, or your ilk. I do not have time to put up with your foolishness or those members who do not want to be uplifted. In the morning, I'll be getting in touch with the home. Much as a bad penny, you shall be returning to them. I'm a woman of my word, though you shall not spend one night in my house." She looked at her husband. "Mr. Amos will show you the shed tonight, and you can come back tomorrow for breakfast before you go. I hope your conscience plagues you, because you may have ruined things for many others. I do not know if I shall ever be able to keep another child in need. I do not know I shall ever allow vermin to attack my poor baby in his own house." She talked like this, and she wasn't even a preacher. Shucks, she talked strange like this, and she wasn't even a librarian. I only halfway listened to what Mrs. Amos was saying. I was too busy keeping my eye on my suitcase and wonder if they'd stolen anything from it. When I thought she was done talking, I reached my hand for my suitcase, but she told Mr. Amos, "Oh no, we're going to hold on to your beloved valuables. This shall be our assurance that nothing comes up missing from the house, and that this little animal is still here in the morning. He is far too attached to those treasures to go anywhere without them." Mrs. Amos was one of those grown-ups who could always think of one more thing to say. And that's not all. Before you retire to the shed, you shall go to Todd and apologize, or I shall be forced to give you the strapping of your life. I'd been so worried about my suitcase, I didn't even notice the thick black strap hanging out of Mr. Amos's hands. She didn't have to worry. I'd apologize. One beating from those Amoses was enough for me. She grabbed my arm. Mr. Amos walked out of the room with my suitcase. Mrs. Amos pulled me down the hall to Todd's room. We stood outside the door, listening to Todd groan. When Mr. Amos came back, my suitcase was gone. He had been so quick, I knew my bag wasn't too far away. She tapped on Todd's door. Todd, can we come in? Yes, Mother. Choke, cough, come in. We opened the door. Todd got a good, terrified look on his face. Well, I put my head down, and I started saying apologies, kind of like John Dillinger shoots out bullets. I aimed at Todd first. I know it was wrong of me to hit you. I know you were only trying to help, and I'm very sorry for what I did. I looked at Mr. Amos. And, sir, I'm sorry that I got you out of your sleep. He rolled his eyes like that was enough for him. Mrs. Amos was going to be the hardest because her ears were set to believe everything that came out of Todd's lips and nothing that I said. And Mrs. Amos, I'm so grateful for all your help. I am really, really sorry. I looked up. She needed more. If you give me another chance, I promise I'll do a whole lot better. Please don't call the home. Please don't send me back. Shucks, going back to the home was actually what I wanted. But just like Brer Rabbit in one of the books Mama used to read to me, where he yelled out, "Please, Brer Fox, don't throw me into the pack of thornies, please." This was another one of Bud Caldwell's rules of things you have a funner life and make a better liar out of yourself. There it is, number 118. You have to give adults something that they think they can use to hurt you by taking it away, and that they might not take something away that you really do want. Unless they're crazy or really stupid, they won't take everything, because if they did, they wouldn't have anything to hold over your head to hurt you with later. I stopped talking and I gave Mrs. Amos a chance to jump in. Enough! Mr. Amos, give him the blanket and the pillow and the bed he was in and put him in the shed. Yeah, buddy, keep a sharp eye out for the vampire bats in the shed. It was like a miracle. Todd's asthma was gone, and he was a real chatterbox. Oh, and watch out for the spiders and the centipedes. The last kid who got put in there got stung so bad, he swelled up as big as a whale. I guess I didn't look scared enough because Todd kept going. The kid before that hasn't been found to this day, and all that's left is a big puddle of his blood on the floor. Isn't that right, Mother? Toddy, hush up. You'll just tire yourself out more. I noticed that she never denied the things that Todd said about vampires or centipedes or puddles of blood. I followed Mr. Amos and kept a sharp eye out for my suitcase. When we got to the kitchen, the first thing I saw was a double-barreled shotgun leaning against the refrigerator, or the icebox. I didn't have time to wonder why they'd be so scared to keep a big gun like that, but I spotted my suitcase slid way under the kitchen table. I didn't let Mr. Amos know I'd seen it. When we went out to the back kitchen door, down the steps in the dark. We walked around to the back of the shed, and he put a key in the padlock. A chain rattled, the lock came off, and the door creaked open. Even though it was nighttime, there was a different, scarier kind of dark in the shed. A cold dark with grays and shadows. Mr. Amos nudged me, and I took a baby step into the shed. He could kiss my wrist if he thought I was going to beg him and say things. I'll do anything you folks ask if you don't lock me up in here all along. I squeezed my tongue between my teeth to hold it still, because I know a lot of times your brain might want to be brave, but your mouth might let real something chicken-sounding stuff fall out of it. I stood a little bit inside, and I looked around. Right under the window was a pile of stacked wood. There was a bunch of dusty spider webs in front of the window. Someone pasted old yellow newspapers over the glass so kids who got looked in there couldn't peek out. Mr. Amos handed me the blanket and pillow and another nudge. I took 2 more baby steps in. I looked down at the floor. If I was a normal kid, I would have bust out crying, but I just stood there breathing hard. It's a good thing I bit my tongue, because I came real close to saying those stupid begging words. Right in the middle of the dirt floor was a big black stain in the dirt. They really were going to make me sleep in a shed with a patch of blood from that kid who disappeared out here a couple of weeks ago. The floor went completely black when Mr. Amos pulled the door shut. I couldn't see it now, but I memorized the exact shape the stain was in. The padlock snapped shut with the loudest click I'd ever heard. Now, I doubt there was really a puddle of blood from the kid who got eaten by spiders and disappeared. But again, that's Bud's mind. He's super smart and he's super sharp, but the guy is, he's like 12, right? I forget already. Yeah, so that's what's beautiful about this book. Okay, sorry. Chapter 2, we'll pick up more tomorrow. Thank you for listening.